Well, as I record this, looking forward to September the 9th on Tuesday, there's supposed to be a hearing before the House Oversight Committee, another hearing into the UAP subject, and supposedly we're going to be treated to some firsthand witnesses. It's hard to know what they're going to say exactly. Who they are is also unknown. It's probably good that they be unknown, except that um, I doubt that the people in the program security group don't already know somehow, but whatever. But at any rate, that's going to be an interesting thing, and let's hope it happens as we count down the days. But I'm going to talk in general about this whole thing about UFO disclosure and the environment around the subject and people involved in it. I mean, uh, one thing I'd start off with. Like Ross Coulthart, for example. I noticed that he has come out with some rather strange comments as of late. They're becoming more so. I mean, this whole thing that Lockheed Martin actually is behind the Tic Tac UFO event is perhaps one of the more amazing statements. Initially, it sounded like he was saying that they actually made the thing. It was a reverse engineered project, and then I think he becomes a bit more ambiguous. And well, we'll see about that. Um, and then there's other things that are claimed, but looking back on, Ross Coulthart, when he wrote his book In Plain Sight and doing the research for that, his initial claims were fairly realistic. He had apparently managed to penetrate a little bit at the edges of the security of the program, and particularly a naval research, I guess, scientist, they could say, named Nat Kobitz, had told him a few things about his experience with a artifact that he'd been asked to examine, and apparently Coulthart had managed to somehow find these people by sniffing around the edges of it and sending actually snail mail letters to them to avoid being detected by the all intrusive electronic surveillance capabilities that exist. Apparently, his earlier reporting on the Echelon system with the Five Eyes let him know that Big Brother is listening, and so at any rate, that was interesting, and he managed to get some information where this guy had an object which, while this guy was an expert in electron welding, I guess he was given something to examine and gave the reading that it wasn't made by any technique we had. It wasn't our type of electron welding. It was done at a much more integrated and atomic level beyond our current technology. And so that's an interesting example. But this was, he was taken to an underground facility at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, where else, to examine this object. Apparently, he might have known more, but was pretty closed-mouthed about anything else. And then he passed away. He was terminally ill at the time he made these disclosures. And so, and he also appointed another person who, in the book, he gives the code name Sidewinder. I have no idea who that is, but at any rate, who had a friend apparently who was invited to work in the program and was telling about the mysterious ways in which the cover was created. That apparently it was out of the aerospace company at Long Beach. Sounds like Boeing to me. Because after all, at one time that was the Boeing took over and merged with McDonnell Douglas and essentially took it over in 1996. And of course, that was their Long Beach plant, and that's where the C-17 was made, so, which is interesting. Good place to have a cover, don't you think? Because they think it's all transport aircraft and something this exotic. Well, at any rate, that's his story, and he got he brushed up with the program and got a few facts that probably he shouldn't have got, and then he published it in a book. And now he's coming out with more and more wild stories. I mean, another big success he had was the revelations of course, David Grush and Jake Barber, and these are real, I think, if you will, whistleblower type individuals. and apparently those two apparently may know each other, so that makes sense. And they've managed to get stuff through the DOPSA review process that kind of, I think they sort of tricked the process a little bit, maybe. I mean, it's a good question, given the security around the program, how much the DOPSA people really know about it or know who to refer it to, because after all, they have to know what controlling agency would have security oversight over a given issue in order to refer the item to them for review and redaction, right? And so that this may be why some things slipped through there recently. uh, but at any rate, I'm really, I think he's made a major contribution to the disclosure effort, and very interesting. He also is sensitive to the interest of, let's say, national security, or even I would say the security of the free world, actually, because he's an Australian, but it's an ally of the U.S., and I think he's pretty supportive of that alliance. So, at any rate, so that's what I want to say, though, is since then, though, he's got these ideas about, Lockheed Martin having a UFO, that we already have these mysterious craft that's powered by reverse engineered technology and so forth. And not only that, that giant UFO that we can't move in a foreign country, but they've built a building over it to conceal it, but it also serves some other purpose. And all these wild stories. And of course, I have a sort of a theory that what's happened with him is that once the security around the program became aware of him when he published his book, if nothing else, they went, oh, people are talking to this guy. So let's get some other people talking to this guy, and let's feed him a bunch of stuff. And, we're not going to arrest him as a spy because although he is a foreign national asking for top secret information from people, that would blow the whole cover up that we're doing anyhow. And I think it's not something that they would want to raise the level of having a bad accident happen to them. It would be suspicious and not necessary. I think they've chosen, my opinion, to discredit by simply feeding him wild tales that will eventually prove out to be absurd and will look to be that way. And I still watch all his stuff because who knows what he'll come up with next. But I think this is the problem in general that this subject has had. I mean, I'm a big follower of Richard Dolan, and in fact, my own inclination toward it is similar to his in a lot of ways. And yet, after a while, it gets wilder and wilder. I mean, the big mythology, I think, remember, he's the one that helped, among other people who remain nameless, that brought us the Admiral Wilson story. And yet, this thing always seems to expand to this idea that we actually have this technology. And it's something that we're holding back for some mysterious reason, and we're not really using it much other than building a few stray vehicles that we fly around and do whatever with them. And I tend to think this is probably not the reality. In fact, the reality that was in the Admiral Wilson disclosure, the reality that I think that was in Coulthardt's original book that's in plain sight seems to be the more realistic one. And that is, yes, there are definitely UAPs. They are due to an extraterrestrial intelligence, non-human, if you will, and they are and probably there have been recoveries of these objects one way or another, and apparently both have occurred. And so we get Jake Barber being involved in the transportation of an object that's been obtained, and we have, the Admiral Wilson story. And I would note that if you want to believe that there's any truth to the idea that one of our companies has actually made a reverse engineered object of the capabilities of the Tic Tac UFO of 2004, remember that just a few years earlier, Admiral Wilson had his investigation and met with same company and was denied access to it. However, he was told a few things to placate him and hope he would go away and take that as a consolation prize. And one of the things he was told basically was that, yes, it is what you think it is, but we haven't made a whole lot of progress in actually reverse engineering it. And that's sort of what many other people that are kind of in the know have really said, I think. And yet now we have the other side that no, we've got all these things flying around, and so does China, maybe even Russia, and who knows who else. And they're flying over our air bases. They're doing this and they're doing that, uh, and I tend to think that this is all misinformation. In reality, the things flying over our air bases probably are actual UAPs of extraterrestrial origin, because if you go into things like the book, UFOs and nukes, that details a long chronology going back to at least 1945 of the NHI being interested in observing our military programs, particularly our nuclear ones, and probably other things. So, that is the way I look at the situation, and I think that the people are letting their imagination run away with them, actually, for how far we've gone. And my general argument, that, as I've presented other places, particularly on the space show, is that just think about any advanced technology that we have today that's fairly recent technology, like the laptop computer I'm recording this on. Put that in a time machine and send it back to 1940, and have the best people the U.S. government could come up with examine it, and maybe they could plug it in, because let's say it has the charger with it. Maybe there's even a little paper with it that tells you everything you need to know about how to use it. Of course, you can't get online because there was no internet back then, and there's a limit of what you might do with it, but you could definitely do some things with it. But to duplicate it, there's no way. They couldn't duplicate this thing as is in 1980. They could make a crude facsimile, perhaps, but not anything at the capabilities that this one actually has. And I think that's the same thing we're dealing with in the UAP subject. The real issue, I guess, is, have we actually discovered new physics in this, which would really allow a crude copy, if you will, a crude facsimile. Wright brothers plane compared to a F-22 fighter plane, something analogous to that would be that we might actually be able to fly. The other possibility is, if we actually have obtained these things, which allegedly have some of them apparently intact, have we managed to learn to fly them? And that might be a possibility, I think. There is a more extreme possibility. If we've actually made contact with NHI, it's always possible that deals have been arranged. After all, Native Americans obtained firearms that they certainly couldn't manufacture, and gave Custer a bad day, you might say. So, there's all sorts of possibilities here, and the truth is being hidden for a variety of reasons, I think. And we'll see what comes out of this upcoming hearing. I doubt we're going to get the full thing, but you never know. Maybe somebody will speak out of school there and tell us more than they're supposed to, or something. At any rate, it'll be interesting to see, but that's just kind of my attitude. It's not that I'm knocking any of these people exactly, but I think people need to show a little caution here, a little prudence, and just a little conservatism about the subject. I think a lot of it runs into the fact that a lot of the people involved in these things, well, not all of them, some of them are pretty expert, but I think that, and often things are taken out of context, or, if somebody says something, they'll try to blow it up. They were trying to make a claim they really weren't making, and then debunk the claim. I mean, look what happened to Lou Elizondo, where he showed a picture of something and simply asked, "Where would you send us to have it evaluated?" Well, I guess the debunkers evaluated it for him real quick. And then they turned it into, he was claiming it really was a UAP, which he didn't claim. which maybe shows a bit of political naivete there, but it's not any disingenuousness. At any rate, that's just kind of want to say we're looking forward to the hearing. Let's hope it actually happens. Let's hope that we have somebody that really tells us something we don't already know, at least confirms a little of it. And so I'll be wrapping this up for now. And as always, I'll be posting this on YouTube and Rumble. And the address of my social media accounts are in the description below. Please like, subscribe, and you can pass it on to anybody else to be interested. All for now.